This is the fourth lesson in the CSS unit of work. Now, what we will have a look at is a quick reminder of what CSS is and how it works, what a div tag is, and how we can add divisions to our web page. But this time, a real focus on how we can actually use these divisions to rearrange the structure and the layout of a web page. So, a quick reminder of what a div tag is. Well, remember, div tags can be used to create divisions or different sections to your web page so that different content can be assigned its own styles, for example. So here you can see that we've got some HTML tags and we've got a bit of text called "This is section 1, another bit of text, "This is section 2, and another bit of text, "This is section 3. And if we were to see what that code actually looked like on a web page, it would simply just be these three sentences, one after the other, down the page. But secretly, we know that there is actually different divisions that each of these sentences are in. The first sentence is in a division with the ID section 1. The next sentence is in the division called section 2, or with ID section 2, and then the third is in a division with ID section 3. But as far as it would look on a web page at the moment, because we haven't styled these different paragraph tags differently, it would just look like three sentences, one on top of the other. So what we can then do with CSS is that we can then actually make each of these divisions, or the tags within the divisions, have their own style. And we saw this last lesson. So you can see here that section 1, the text, has, because it's in division with ID section 1, has been given its own CSS code. Font size has been set to 20. This is section 2. That's in in the division with ID section 2. That's been given its own style, so it's larger text. So font size has been 50. And this is section 3. Because it's in the division with ID section 3, you can see here that we've actually applied its own style to that particular paragraph tag in that particular section, in that particular division. And we've done that using the hash symbol to try and reference the correct division, and then we've applied the style to the tag within that division. So what we can now have a look at doing is, instead of applying different styles to the contents of divisions, what we can actually do is we can use CSS code to rearrange the divisions so that they appear in different parts of the page to create the page structure that we might desire. So to create a layout for our web page, we first of all split the page into the different sections that we want to use. Now what I've done here is I've created a bit of a web page that without CSS would simply be text on top of each other in a linear fashion. But what I've done is I've got a heading, the solar system, and I've put that inside a division with the ID header. I've then listed different planets and I've put that in its own division, and I've called it nav. And then I've got another division which has got a title, Earth, and then a couple of paragraph tags where there's some information about Earth. And that division has got the ID main. Now what I want to do is, yes, I could style the text differently in each of these divisions, but actually what I want is I want to use some CSS code to rearrange these different divisions so that the navigation division, so nav division, is on the left hand side like a menu bar or a navigation bar that you might find on a web page. I want the header division to be at the top like you would find on a web page, a big header banner going along the top. And then I want my main division to be to the right of the menu bar, so that we create a structure. And the structure can be created using the following CSS code. Now what you will see is that I haven't really done anything special to the head division. I might have aligned the text center and added a background color, but this particular bit of CSS code for the nav division is quite important. What I've done is I've set a height and I've set a width for this division, and I've also used this code called float, and I'm floating it to the left side of the screen. Now because the width is only 100 pixels, and it's floated to the left. I've then done a similar thing for the main division. I've floated that to the left as well. And the idea here is that if the nav division is only 300 pixels in from the left hand side, if we float another division, what it will do is it will wrap to the right hand side of that particular division. Let me show you an example. I've talked about these. Okay, here we go. So this here would be the result of the CSS code. You can see that we've got our heading or our header division, which is at the top, and it's got a background color of aqua. Nothing special about the code there, but this nav division has been set a width of 100 pixels, a height of 300 pixels, and it's floated to the left side of the screen. And then what we've got here is the main content, which again has been floated to the left, and you can see that it basically wraps around the right hand side or wherever this division ends. Okay, the division before ends. So we've got this structure now for our web page, which looks a little bit more like a modern day web page, as opposed to the text just being in a linear fashion, one after the other down the page. And we've also added some padding. Now padding just sort of moves the content in from the margin. Right, let's have a look to see this in action. Let's have a look at our IDE and see if we can start coding a similar thing, a similar structure to what we can see here. Okay, so here we are. We can see that we've got in our body, we've got some HTML, we've got 3 divisions, a division with ID header, and that's just got the heading tag text, the header. We've got our nav division, and that's got menu option 1, menu option 2, 3 and 4 with a break after each so that it goes onto a new line. And then we've got our third division with ID called main, and that's just got a bit of a paragraph tag with the text some page content. And the result looks has all of this text that we've created in HTML in a linear fashion going down the page. What I've done up here in the header, sorry, in the head section of our code is I've created style tags, and I've begun to add the CSS code, or I've got placeholders to add CSS to each of the divisions. So let's begin by adding some CSS code to the header. Let's say that we want the background to be aqua. You can see that that's done. And let's say that we want the text to be aligned to the center, like it would do if it was a normal header. So that's fine. Now let's focus on the nav bar. We want the nav bar to be on the left hand side, like a menu on the left hand side of a web page, and we want this page content to then be placed to the right hand side of it, where we would normally find some content for a web page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I want the width to be, and I'm going to use a percentage this time, I'm going to say that I want it to be 20% of the width of the page. I want to make it float to the left side, and if I run the code, you can see that already the page content that was in, or the text, some page content that was in our division called main, has already gone to the right hand side of the division called nav. And the reason for that is because we set the width of that division to 20%. So it had some space to fill, so it's wrapped up to the left hand side, which is great. Now what we could do is, if we wanted to, we could add a background color to our nav bar. Let's say yellow, so we can see where the actual navigation bar is, or where that division finishes, where it starts and where it stops. So you can see here that the height of that division isn't very high. So what we could do if we wanted to is we could add some code just to change that. Let's set the height to 300 pixels and see what happens now. Okay, so that's a lot further down the page, that looks a bit better. Now in terms of our main division, you can see that the content is really up close to the left hand side here of the nav division. So what we might want to do is add a bit of padding. So what I could do is I could say I want padding on the left hand side and I want it to be 25 pixels, and let's just see if that pushes the text over to the right hand side slightly. Okay, you can actually see that that hasn't moved it over, and that's because the padding is actually still being applied to the left hand side of the screen. So it's trying to be 25 pixels away from this, but then we've got this big division, we've got this nav division in the way, so it sort of negates the effect of that. So what we would want to do is just make sure that we know that this particular division also floats to the left, so therefore it will the margin of this division will start where the division before ends. So let's just put in float and left and see if that improves things, which it does. You can see that's now 25 pixels in from the margin or the starting point of that of the main division. We floated it left. That means that it starts where the other division stops, and then we could just add our normal page content if we wanted to the division called main to develop our web page. And there we've got an example of how we can use CSS code to change the structure of a web page. Have a little go yourself, see what you can do.